A pattern-changing, big dynamic winter storm is on its way for many, including severe thunderstorms, blizzard conditions, and heavy rain in all portions of the lower 48, especially in the eastern U.S. Everything you need to know and more in this video, so let's get rocking and rolling. So let's start out with National Weather Service alerts and indices, as we always do. And let's start out in the west. So over here in the Pacific Northwest, lots of advisories. Both winter and wind are the main two, I'd say, categories currently going on. In the purples, you have winter weather advisories, all for mountainous snows and wintry conditions. And then over in the pink are winter storm warnings, where slightly higher totals are expected. Here in this kind of gold color are all wind advisories. And some special weather statements over here also accompany some red flag warnings. So some fire-prone areas to watch out for in portions of Wyoming, Nebraska, especially Colorado, and even into Kansas. And then when you get towards like southwestern California, also some wind advisories, as again, very dynamic atmospheric river kind of going on right now. Not as much precipitation with it remains, except some upslope snows in the higher elevations, but it's still whipping winds. And as another low kind of works its way from the north and west, which is a little more interesting, we haven't seen much of that in the Pacific Northwest. We're going to get one, what we typically get in winter. We're going to start to see probably some flood watches, and at least as we have winter storm warnings and advisories, as it will cause some pretty hefty snow totals up there, which we haven't seen all that often so far this season. As we work our way towards the east and kind of start in the northern Midwest, some remaining special weather statements with winter weather advisories as we had the system that moved through. Expect more to populate in the coming days as we get our big nationwide pattern-changing dynamic cutter. And then over in the northeast, some winter weather advisories, including the big city of Boston, as we're having that same system that I talked about earlier that kind of traversed through the Midwest. It's coming through the Northeast, and some remaining cold will lead to some icing concerns in these areas. I'd say around Boston and south, it should switch to rain, but if you get north of those areas, it should stay all snow, as a coastal transfer helps to keep cold air digged in and some snow with that possible as well. So let's kind of get the zoomed out picture and see what's going on. So these are the two main storms. So a little low right here, some moisture. This is the one that's really causing these wind advisories further south. Another more prominent low over here towards British Columbia is going to make its way south, and this is what's going to bring these rains and snows for these areas. Some flood watches advisories should get issued, but again, should, because these areas in the Pacific Northwest are always prone to heavy precipitation, especially in the wet winter with La Nina conditions so prevailing, even though we have a fading La Nina. So let's kind of go towards the east with our third storm. This just came through the Midwest. Now it's heading east, and with it bringing some wintry weather and some colder rains. So as we kind of continue through, you see some light icing could get down through Boston, but it's very light. Once you get further north, again, north of Boston, north of those areas, north of Massachusetts overall, is where cold hangs in long enough as you have a high pressure that's kind of retreating, still keeping some colder air in, called cold air damming, and so you still have snow. And why it's not ice is because you have snow and it's because you have cold in all levels of the atmosphere leading to snow. So snowflakes don't melt at all. Let's kind of take a little sounding, and there you have it. Very cold all throughout, 22 degrees. So this could be some high ratio snow too. And very interesting because there's not much mixing going on. I mean, you're either rain or you're either snow. And that just means it's overall pretty fragile setup. But again, could start as ice in portions near Boston, closer to the city. More snow and hangs on to wintry weather, especially as you get north. Maine, mostly snow, except I'd say the southeastern half of it, as you could start some snow going over to rain as some warmer advection intrudes. That heads out, and here comes our dynamic storm. Okay, so let's get this kind of big picture. Here's your low pressure. It's expected to track. Okay, that was a wrong track. So it's expected to track kind of through here. You see these like tight isobars, a little hard to see lines. It's gonna track through here. Okay, and we'll just do a quick run through. I'm gonna focus region by region. But the 540 line, biggest note, is up here. So it's going to be snow all the way up here, but that's honestly pretty north. Okay, even Chicago doesn't have that big of a threat, but we're gonna watch it. Okay, it should sink south. You'll see a little bit, and there it is. Okay, this is the first storm. So sorry, I should say that it's still an interesting setup because it could be either a double barrel low, where you get two low pressures, multiple kind of impulse of energy riding it, or you would just get this strong dynamic low. Here, the Euro likes a nice dynamic low, okay, but then it kind of weakens out, and then you get an even stronger one that develops. This, honestly, it does look like a double barrel low. I'm pretty sure that's what you call it. Anyone in comments, let me know. But two low pressure systems riding the boundary. However, okay, this is something to watch. This low, as it heads this way, it drops down this boundary. Your 540 line is over here now. Remember, it was kind of back in here. Now it's back here, and so Chicago even could have a chance at some snow. So the low digs more, the trough is able to dig more, amplify more as well. Okay, this gets stronger. Maybe not with the millibars, I'd say. It's not as dynamic, but once it gets up here, it does get pretty. It gets its act together pretty late, honestly, because the energy, this is pretty far, honestly, for fusing piece of energy. I mean, you have this Gulf slug, and then you have your, obviously, kind of northern piece energy through here. You would kind of want this a little closer if you wanted a bigger strengthening storm further back here, because it doesn't strengthen once it gets into like Michigan. I mean, it does strengthen, but not rapid cyclogenesis. Once it gets here, you can see those millibars dropping sub 1,000. But it's going to be an interesting setup, okay? Chicago, north and west, it's going to be snowy. Chicago itself, trickier forecast. Trends have been colder, but it still wants snow, mainly north and west of the city. Back end, though, could get some lake effect as its northwest flow briefly kicks in. So let's kind of take it region through region. Okay, we'll start like right here. This is 1 a.m. Saturday. So this is with the second low, okay? This is not going to cause much of an impact, or the first low won't cause as much of an impact. So let's kind of, we'll start over here. Here's your freezing rain, by the way, with this one storm that we still have winter weather advisories in, portions of Wisconsin, Michigan. So here's your first low, very warm. Okay, let's kind of look at 850s. Okay, very warm contrast. That 540 line is well north and west of Minneapolis. Okay, you can see how it starts to wrap behind though. There's your low, chugging through, warm everywhere. Enjoy the rain. Okay, if we take kind of a look at the freezing line at the surface, or temperatures at the surface, let's take a look. A little colder, okay, a little bit colder. It's marginal though. This does set up a situation where you can have some patchy freezing rain, okay. For example, in kind of these areas, it's a little cold, okay, and especially once you get over here, it could have some patchy freezing rain there. Once you get towards the Dakotas, northwest half of Minnesota, you can get some freezing rain, because if you kind of backtrack a little bit, you have cold air, but then you start to see how warm it's out. Even Chicago, look how warm it gets. You could challenge upper 50s, maybe even 60s with this low. It's going to be very, very close. But as the storm comes through, that 540 line is constantly dropping, and so mainly rain everywhere until you get to like Minnesota, northern portions of Wisconsin and portions of the UP of Michigan. Okay, interesting setup though is it's going to be a battle between the warm air advection of this storm and the cold air advection on the back side. Okay, I think the Euro's reading is pretty good. I think here is where you could get some snow. I'd say arguably in here. Okay, it won't be very, very accumulating though, as it's kind of going out quick. But I mean, up here, kind of maybe have to watch out for northern areas of Wisconsin into the UP, western portion of the UP. But there you have your 540 line dropping further. Okay, so I'm gonna go back real quick. Okay, so here, let's stop it right here. Here's your next low right there. Further track is further south. Therefore, the 540 line, baroclitic zone's a little more further south and east. You can get a more traditional cutter. If you take a look at 850s, let's kind of do some mapping here. Okay, here's our 850 line with this storm, roughly. Okay, let's go 60 hours out. It was like roughly right here. Either way, now it's way back over here. Okay, with this other storm. Okay, so I mean that's a few hundred miles distance. That's almost the entire state of Iowa. Over the entire state of Iowa it travels. Okay, in that kind of time frame. So first low clears it. Mainly rain. Okay, sorry about that. Mainly rain. You also have a high pressure right here. This is also helping to push down the cold. Mainly rain with the first storm except for portions of Wisconsin, UP. Here's where your next storm comes. Kansas City. Close. It's going to be close for you in Kansas City. Rain, snow, close. Okay. Further gets up Des Moines. Looks to get some snow. Okay. It'll really take shape though once you get further up. Okay. Very dynamic storm. It's not a widespread snow. Okay, because again, piece of energy a little too caught up. If you had this kind of piece of energy further east, you could get it more widespread. But not as widespread, but very dynamic. Look at these heavy snows, okay? Chicago, right in here. Okay, we can take a sounding. I think Euro has soundings. Yeah, it does. Let's take a sounding in Chicago. What do we have? Just marginal surface temperatures, okay? 34. 540s look to be sufficient, but I mean it's really close though. I mean once you get towards I'd say 800s and below, it's marginal setup, okay, which is leading to this kind of very fragile setup. But what I will say, it's so marginal that this does scream kind of like white rain, so rain and snow mix, or snowflakes that are melting. So I mean you could see some snowflakes melting on the back end. This is what, Saturday morning and afternoon. Once you get into the evening and late afternoon though, that's where it could be all snow as cold air really wraps back. Wisconsin looks to be kind of the main area to watch. I'd say jackpot zone through here, the UP, and kind of through here. Widespread snows on the backside. Most of Wisconsin should say snow, including Green Bay. Gonna have to watch Green Bay and Chicago. There's where one of the playoff games, pretty sure, for NFL, for the National Football League is going to be held. So we're going to have to watch that rain snow line very close. Green Bay also snow as well. So we're watching it. Okay, right behind it, very cold. Okay, very cold. So that's that part. Northeast, not much to write off. Okay, so here's your storm. Some localized thunderstorms are possible Friday morning through, I'd say, these areas right here. Okay, or through like these areas down here. Okay, so up portions of central New York, western PA, southern Ohio, northwestern Virginia, through Kentucky, Tennessee, all those areas. Okay, could it make it through the entire coastline? Possibly. Could fall apart just before the I-95. We'll have to watch out though. 7 p.m. Saturday. This is your first low, and then here comes your double barrel, your second low. This is where severe weather is also possible, but more heavy rain. More have a heavy rain setup. Warm air advection leading to basically no favorability of any type of snow except northern Maine. Okay, I'd say the northern third of Maine is where you could get some snow. I mean, if we take a kind of like a sounding in Trenton, or are we here? Let's go closer to Philly. 48 degrees. I mean, look at that warm air advection. That is some pretty big warm air advection. Okay, it's not below freezing until you get above 700 millibars. So even at 700 millibars, it's above freezing. So it's plain rain for these areas, and I mean that's pretty typical with the cutter. So there you have it. Maine, watch out. Maybe extreme eastern portions of New Hampshire, northeastern portions could deal with some onset ice. Okay, and it could actually hold on to it and maybe get further, like stay iced. Okay, it could kind of dig deep. You'll have another high that's retreating, but strong enough where it's like trying to stand its ground and keeping cold air in. Where like Caribou, for example, in Maine, it's all snow. Okay, Portland trickier, maybe some ice at onset, mainly rain. Okay, New Hampshire will be interesting though. This is gonna be interesting for those areas, but everywhere else rain. Okay, but behind that, very cold air. Let's kind of go further south. Here's where your main severe threat will be. I mean, look at that. This is like our first severe threat of the season for these areas over here in the southeast. Temps pretty warm, 60s. Obviously winter, so it won't be as warm. If we come over here, look at dew points. They're oppressive, above 60s and above. Okay, you need that. Okay, if we take a little sounding, which I mean it's the Euro, so it won't be as impressive. We can take it kind of here. This is a nice little an unstable atmosphere. Okay, I mean if you come over here, you have some cape at 200, 600 D cape, some shear, 40 knots. That's why this will mainly probably be a damaging wind threat. Pretty moist atmosphere based off precipitable water values. In the relative humidity, drier over here before it's moist, below 700 millibars. That screams instability, and you almost see with this mixing layer, you almost see an inverted V, which is another threat of freezing rain. Sorry, not freezing rain. Damaging winds. And then with hodograph, I mean isolated tornado threats. Maybe you get your classic hook. Could be some isolated tornadoes just based off the shear and stuff, but that won't. It's mainly damaging winds and isolated tornadoes and heavy rain. Okay, that's the main threat. Okay, and that's with that line. So first line kind of right here, not as impressive. This is further north for Friday, and then you get that reload into Saturday, gets areas further south more favorable, and there is where you get your severe weather. So lots of talk on that storm. Last thing I want to go through, it's going to be quick because this video was more tailored towards that major storm. We'll talk about the pattern real quick, as there's kind of been some changes, or mainly how I want to highlight next week. So positive EPO currently in place over there in Alaska. As you have a trough, there's your short wave right here taking place right here, getting ready to eject, and you'll see that take place right there. That brings that trough in the east, shakes up the pattern. You get a positive PNA, negative EPO holding on, so you could get some brief ridging on Tuesday and Wednesday before that trough kind of digs down. Ridging, trying to build into Alaska and trying to displace that positive EPO, get more negative. You kind of get a spiking through there, troughing through there, ridging back here, slightly negative NAO, almost east-based, which is pretty interesting to see. And now kind of lead into it. So watch. This is why next week's threat is kind of not really a threat for any snowstorm prospects or east snow prospects on the east. Now, you still have a baroclinic zone through here. So your track is favorable if you were to get energy. But the thing with this is you have cold air, especially for mid-Atlantic points north, I'd say in this area. You have cold air, but where's your energy at? Okay, where's your energy? You have a ridge spiking in Alaska. This is favorable, okay? But what you don't have, Gulf of Alaska low. That would help with amplification. This ridge is way too offshore. You would need to back this up. It's been trending offshore too. You'd want this over kind of Montana over here to get more downstream amplification, get that northern stream to dig. Where's the 50-50 low? Instead, you have a ridge. 50. If you were to count this as your 50-50 low, that's way over there. It needs to get backed up. Negative NAO not really working on our favor either. I mean, it's negative, but you'd also want that more west-based. And I mean, you have southern stream energy, but what's the point if your northern stream energy isn't really going to dig? Okay, and I remember seeing this. I don't know if I can find it. It was kind of like showing the jet anomalies. Let's see if I can find it. You can kind of go off through here, maybe. Okay, this doesn't really show it well, but here's your northern stream right here. Okay, southern stream down here. You have your streams. It's just not digging enough. You need this further over here. You need this a little more to the east, and you want it to dig more. And you want this southern stream because you have a long wave trough over here. That's what the kind of signal showing up, which can be favorable. But this is thread the needle because you'd want this further closer to the coast. This a little. You'd basically want these two jets further close. Northern stream to dig, southern stream to kind of expand. Therefore, once you get a merging, that's where it's more favorable. And you just see it never really merges anywhere. Okay, here you have a little bit southern stream energy, but it never really materializes until kind of off coast. Okay, and then it kind of gets a little more interesting because southern stream kind of goes like this. Northern stream kind of comes like this. This is where you could get more slider storms with slight latitude gain. That's kind of far out, 360 hours, but that's honestly what we gotta watch for. Okay, and I mean, if we go back to 500 millibar heights, there's your long wave, and it's short lasted. I mean, comes in Wednesday, and it shifts back west through Saturday. Okay, before even the start of Saturday, 7 p.m. Friday. You get your southeast ridge to get underneath. This is where you could get better overrunning, I'd say, because your northern stream, even though it's not dinging as much, and your ridge is all the way over here, it's still building up in Alaska. Negative NAO, not west based, but a little more central based. 50-50 low signal right here. Still no Gulf of Alaska low, but that's not absolutely needed. And your ridge right here, so you kind of see this jet. It goes like this. Almost. So any kind of long wave, any kind of short wave over here in the southern stream gets ejected further south. North stream kind of goes like, let me redraw that, like that. So you can get some merging kind of through here as it heads out this way. Even that would be a little late. You'd still probably want this a little more. You'd want this to dig. Okay, you'd want this to dig. This positioning is fine, but you want this to dig. And southeast ridge brings concerns for kind of areas south of New York City, probably. Even New York City and south, because anytime this flexes, you could deal with mixing issues or snow being confined to the north. And you can see signals of that later on. But that's a little further out, okay? And we're going to have to watch that. Okay, signs of another negative PNA taking place as that trough stays limited to the north. So, lots of stuff to figure out. Still long range. So, lots of talking. That's about it. Timestamps will be below. Hope you enjoyed. Have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you guys in the next one.